All right. Well, welcome to today's PCCN webinar. Today we're going to be talking about the ACGME survey and getting the right results. Maybe. I have no disclosures. And so today we're going to talk about how to create a plan to obtain accurate and actually useful results from the ACGME survey. That's both the faculty and the resident surveys. So when we're talking about the resident survey, and as we're preparing, one of the things we want to figure out is what do we want and how are the results going to be used. So this is thinking ahead. I think we get let's see, if we're taking the surveys now, which my program is, we'll get the results, in March or April. And so what you want to do is think about, how you're going to use them internally, depending on your GME, how they utilize them, and then how they're going to be used by ACGME. Okay, so preparing for the surveys. So this is, so after we've thought about, what information we're going to use and how we're going to use it, then what we do is, everyone should be, if you haven't already, reviewed your core faculty list. I know ACGME, I think, just redid what is defined as core faculty. But ideally, you want to get people who have a lot of interaction with your residents, whether that's on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And then, people who are contributing to the education, and those who actually, we've removed people from our core faculty who are not very good evaluation completers, because, we do have to have 60% of the faculty complete the survey. We always strive for 100% so that we're actually getting all the feedback we need. But after 2 years, if we have a faculty member who, after talking to them, after emailing them, they aren't completing the survey, we do remove them from our core faculty, because obviously the residency is not a priority to them. So you do want to make sure, you get your faculty, the right faculty on the list. The nice thing about the ACGME survey is, as coordinators, since we are the ones who release the surveys, you can kind of operate a little bit on your own timeline. And so what we do here is we will release the survey to my PD and my APD so that they can review it, just to make sure there's no surprises. And then we have a standard email that we send to all the faculty. And a lot of the stuff that we send to them is stuff that they may not be aware of. So a lot of our faculty don't know about our resident call structure. They don't, unless they're a research focused faculty, they may not realize what our residents are doing in the area of research. And so we send them that type of stuff, that their residents, complete an M&M. They see the residents doing these things, but they don't always connect that it's a requirement, and they don't always connect the verbiage or the vernacular that ACGME uses. And so that's really the purpose of educating the faculty. Occasionally, if we can time it with a faculty meeting, the PD will address the faculty there so that they kind of, get that and they can ask the questions. And then the biggest thing is reminding them that it is a scale of 1 to 5. And a lot of people, when they are filling out a survey, and I'm guilty of this, when you're asked a question and you're like, I don't know, maybe not, you pick the answer that's right in the middle, which is 3 or neutral, because you don't want to, say it's bad when you don't know, and you don't want to say it's good when you don't know. But reminding our faculty that neutral is actually considered negative by the ACGME. So even though they think they're answering in a quote unquote neutral way, they are actually giving us negative marks, which is fine if that's what they think it should be. But we just want them to know that information, because a lot of times, our purpose when getting the survey is we want to get accurate information. And whenever you're completing a survey, I know that ACGME has done a lot of research into this, and I know they've got a lot of people who vet this and that, but there's still a lot of room for human error. And, sometimes, you get results that aren't really applicable. And so that's what our purpose is to get realistic information, the correct feedback, so that we can actually do the right thing with that. And then with the faculty, we never give them the deadline that ACGME gives us. We always ask them to have it done like 2 weeks ahead of time. Just because, as everyone knows, faculty are not always the best at turning things in on time. And then what we do is internally with our faculty results, once we do get them back from ACGME, we do discuss them in our PEC at the end of the year, and then we do present them at a faculty staff meeting. All right, so now preparing the residents for their survey. So one of the things that we have definitely started doing is making sure that at least quarterly, we do have monthly meetings with the residents, but once a quarter, we do come to them with, just remember these are the changes we made to the program based off the survey last year. This is what we're doing to address them, because oftentimes, we'll spend, 4 or 5 hours talking about one thing in June or July, and then we never talk about it again because the problem's fixed. And so just reminding them, using buzzwords in both emails, meetings, practice habits is the big one that hit us a while back. So we worked with our residents to find out some actual practice habit information they would like. They get some quarterly feedback from me based off some of their clinical volumes and performance compared to their peers. We do also have in one of our surveys, there is a section that is labeled practice habits. So once a month when they get that survey, those survey results, there's a whole section that says, Resident 1, these are how the faculty think you're doing on your practice habits, calling parents back, dealing with family issues, those kinds of things. And, and we talked to the residents to see what they wanted, because ACGME has it very vague. And the other thing to remember is practice habits do not have to be drilled down to the specific resident. So I know the big one in epilepsy that qualifies for that fellowship is the fact that we can give vitamin D results. The number of our faculty fellows who check the vitamin D levels of our epilepsy patients. So even if we're not telling the resident or the fellow, these are your specific results, and just saying these are the department results, that does fulfill the practice habits requirement. You just need to make sure that you are using the buzzword practice habits so that they put 2 and 2 together. The other thing that we've started doing is to set up a time and place for them to take this as a group. We do encourage them to answer honestly and as individuals, but what we do is, number one, this ensures that they will complete it, because sometimes people will say, well, I didn't have time or I forgot. Well, if it's on their calendar and I say you are taking it at this time, we know they're going to take it. And then really to establish a support system if there are questions. The first year we did this, we did the survey, or the first year I was a coordinator, we did not have them take it at the same time. And so we got the results back. And when we discussed the results with the residents, we were like, oh, so this is the question, this is how we're going to answer it. And we asked the residents, like, well, what do you think we should do to, resolve this issue? And we had four different residents go, oh, well, I thought the question meant this, and I thought the question meant this. And so four different residents answered the question four different ways. And so there really wasn't a good way to resolve the issue because it was four separate issues that got rolled into one. And so now with the residents being in the room together, if our PGY3s are like, what does this mean? Or like, what are practice habits? There's someone in the room that can tell them, oh, this is what practice habits are. Now, if the resident still feels we don't do a good job of it, they're still encouraged to answer, give us a 1, 2, or 3. We don't care. We just want we just want consistent results so that we can address the problem. When we get inconsistent results where, there's too many things to address with one issue, it makes it really hard. The other thing that we have to do is remind our PGY3s that all of their answers are about the child neurology program. So even if they're overdoing their adult rotations, any feedback they give on this survey comes to child neurology, not to the adult program. So that would also be important for any programs that have, like I know some programs do like 4 months of adult neurology every year. So if they have issues with the adult program, answering negatively on this survey really won't get those issues addressed. That's something that we found out as well. That's kind of problematic. All right, so then reading the survey. So for anyone who is a new coordinator, there are a couple different sections of the survey that you get. This little section is at the top. So it kind of, the blue is what your program looks like. The yellow is what the national means are. And one of the things that took me a couple of years to realize is these national means are for all programs. It is not child neurology programs. You can whittle that down, and there is a report that pulls that. But the main report, at least that our GME looks at, so yours might be different, but it is all programs. So that's comparing you to adult neurology, to pediatrics, internal medicine, surgery, everyone. So just be aware of that. So that's at the top. And at the bottom, you'll see your 3-year averages for these different sections. So you can see, so for us, 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14, we slowly move downward. So at the beginning, when we talked about how ACGME uses the survey, my understanding is this is one of the areas that they look at to identify trends. And so a trend like this, where you have 3 years in a row that move downward, is something that would flag them, and the RRC may or may not take a look. These are those things that would trigger a site visit in between your 10-year studies. And then within all of these sections, there will be something that'll look like this that shows your program compliance, your average score, and then again, the national comparison, which again is all programs, not just child neurology. For any coordinators who've been doing this a while, has anyone else have any thoughts or questions or anything that I'm forgetting out about when you're reading the survey, or anything else that you've learned that's rather important? And also, if you do have questions, feel free to use the chat option as well. Does anybody have any questions about reading the survey or anything we've talked about so far? Okay.
So far, so good. Thanks.
All right. So what do you do with the results? So we did talk about ACGME. They're looking for trends. They're looking for big red flags. So when we looked here, program compliance. So those are the things that they're looking for. If there's ever something that's significantly below the national mean, that's something that can trigger a focused review. RGME, I don't know how everybody else is, but RGME, if we have anything that is below 90% compliant and is less and more than 5% below the national mean, that is an issue that we have to have a formal written plan to address the issue. So when you look here, so let's say this bottom one here is duty hours. And I don't remember what it is, but we'll just say it's duty hours. So we had an 88% program compliance. So for us, since it's below 90%, that's something our GME would look at. But then they would compare us to the national mean. And since we are above the national mean, we are okay. That is not something we have to have a formal plan to address. But if the national mean was 90%, and since this is 88%, we would have to have a written formal plan. This is what happened. This is what we're going to do to address it. And then, so that's where we get all of our information. We complete an APE, or an annual program evaluation, that our GME reviews every year. So internally, the PD and the APD looks at this. They look for trends. We use this survey when we're petitioning internally. So the survey was very helpful for us when we were requesting a complement increase, because we could go back to the survey and say, for the last 4 years, this has been an issue. I'm trying to remember which one that was, education compromised by service. So it's very easy for us to say, this is a problem. We're this far below the national mean. Getting an additional resident would help us to alleviate this issue. And then, so our GME and our hospital do know the ACGME looks at this. So it does help in those types of discussions. We do discuss this with all the residents. We do a retreat every year with all the residents, our PGYs 1 through 5s. And we do bring the results, and anything that's out of compliance, we do talk with the residents openly and just say, what do we need to do to fix it? Every resident, or we have chief residents. So we do 3 chief residents, and so we do assign a chief resident to be the voice for the residents to addressing that particular issue. And they're the ones that do speak at the resident meetings quarterly to give updates on their on their issue that they're working on. And then, so like Francis said in the comments, I don't know if everyone can see those, but so if you do have a downward trend like this for 3 consecutive years, that is something that can trigger a citation, depending on where it is and what's happening. So the RRC may cite your program as well. So with our faculty, we do discuss it at our PEC. The faculty provide their insights as far as how to address the issues. And then we do present the results after discussing with the residents and the faculty. We do go to the all faculty meeting and say, these were our issues. This is how we're addressing them for the upcoming year, and ask for faculty help in resolving those issues. So that is kind of my approach to the ACGME survey. Does anybody else have any other thoughts or questions about the survey, or does somebody do anything different potentially in regards to how do you get your residents to complete the survey? The other thing I did forget is RPD does, because I think you have to have an 80% completion rate if you have 4 or more residents. And RPD, if we have 100% completion, RPD takes everyone to dinner after all the surveys have been completed. I do know for smaller programs, potentially fellowships, and or if you only have 1 or 2 if you only have 1 resident a year, you don't get results every year. I think it's every 3 to 5 years you get the compilation. So it does make it a little harder to utilize the results. In those programs, you do have to rely on your faculty evaluations a little bit more. That's the problem with our fellowship program. Anyone thoughts, questions, concerns? All right. So if no one has any questions about the ACGME Resident Faculty Survey, there were a couple of things that I wanted to talk to the group about a little bit to get some insight. Because Terry Feist and I have already started talking about the upcoming PCCN conference at CNS this year. So this year it is.
Allergies is too quiet and out there.
What was that? Oh, maybe not. And so we'll be in North Carolina this year, October 23rd through the 26th. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about is the length of the conference. Because I know we've done it a couple different ways over the years. And so, so the question is do we do 2 days and make the days, a little longer? Do we do three days and kind of shorten like we did last year? Or the other thing that we had talked about potentially this year is doing kind of a 2 days for all coordinators and then do like a new coordinator boot camp on the first day. And so we just wanted to get everyone's thoughts and opinions before we move forward. And so I will launch a poll real quick. So if everyone could vote for me and kind of provide what you'd be interested in. Because I think the one thing that does throw a little kink into this year's planning is with North Carolina, it being on the East Coast. That is a lot of travel for anybody in the middle of the country or on the West Coast. So we would definitely not want to start too early on Wednesday to allow everyone to travel in. Because if we started too early, people would have to come in Tuesday. And so there is, some issues with people not already not having a ton of funding. And so we did keep that in mind with our thoughts, because the Professors of Child Neurology meeting is actually the first day from 2 to 5, so that would be the 23rd. And I know that's been hit and miss whether or not that's actually useful. There's usually 1 or 2 useful things that come out of that meeting for coordinators, but that's usually about it for a 3-hour meeting. And then the other thing is everyone will be getting some emails either from Terry or myself for one of 2 things. If you've been part of the conference in the past, we are looking for presenters. And so I would ask everyone to start thinking if you are willing to present, or even if there are specific topics that you would like presented. I know we've got a list from Terry's survey at the end of last year, but if any of that has changed, it might be worth it to revisit, or if something else has come up, or you've identified an issue recently that you would like addressed, we would appreciate that. And then also, we are looking for people to present, because I know everyone's tired of hearing me talk, and so the more people we can get presenting, the less presentations I have to do, and then the conference is more enjoyable for everyone. But we are starting this planning phase, so we are looking for probably 3 to 4 people who would be willing to join me on the abstract review committee. Oh, is there someone wanting to chime in? So we are looking for a couple people to join me to review abstracts and or potentially solicit for abstract submissions. We are also looking for a couple people to be on the social committee. So if you were on the social committee last year and you are interested in staying on it for next year in North Carolina, we are more than happy to have you. But if you are interested in joining either the social committee, the abstract committee, or if you're interested in just helping with the overall conference in general, please do let Terry and I know, and be on the lookout for emails from us asking for that type of help. The next thing I wanted to get some feedback on is the AAN has approached Terry and I, and they are moving with what they're calling a coordinator consortium. So I don't know if anybody here is also part of their adult neurology program who might be able to speak to this as well. But basically, they're asking if we want to be involved with them, helping to push for the coordinators to be recognized as a group within the AAN. So what it is they're trying to get support from the AAN to have a coordinator conference as part of the AAN conference, trying to get support to have stuff on the website, membership type stuff. And so they haven't had the same support from the AAN, or they've had different support, I would say, from the AAN than we've had. And they're just wondering if we'd be interested in teaming up with them and presenting a united front. There are some pros and cons, just like anything. They're going to